Drag race queens slam silent allies over anti-trans, anti-drag bills. Silent support is no longer enough. Trans people and drag artists have always been at the forefront of fighting for LGBTQ+ rights, and the same thing is happening once again in 2023. With hundreds of new pieces of transphobic and anti-drag legislation being introduced, voted on, and even passed by conservative politicians, high-profile stars of RuPaul's Drag Race are fighting back and urging those who call themselves allies to take a firm stand in defense of the LGBTQ+ community. Tennessee has become the first state in the U.S. to pass a bill with significant restrictions to drag shows. Unfortunately, hundreds of similar bills are being brought up in other states. CPAC Speaker Michael Knowles has given a dangerously transphobic call to action, saying, quote, transgenderism must be eradicated, end quote. This has ignited fury and fear within the LGBTQ+ community. Even though some queer people are already starting to fight back, many are also calling upon our allies to stand with us in this fight. Drag race queens like The Jinx, Ben de la Creme, Bianca Del Rio, and others are appealing to people to raise their voices in support of the LGBTQ+ community. I think I've been bringing this up, all along, is to say, where are the allies? Where are the corporate sponsors? Where are the voices to come out against these things? I had my younger cousin was here this past weekend before they were going on a family cruise. He's 23, went to college in Tennessee, is gay, obviously goes to the gay bars, and we were talking about the drag ban and, what the community is going to be like, and, he's not someone who I would say was ever kind of has an activist, grew up as being 23. It was like, oh, it's always going to be like this. And they're talking about, that you won't be able to be in drag, come to work, get out of your car and walk 3 blocks because you'll be appearing in public in drag. So they will have to get dressed in private and not be seen in public. I guess in Tennessee, he asked me if we have that here, because they do a lot of these like party buses where they have drag events and they do them on these, and so he's like, well, those won't be impacted because they're self-enclosed. And I was thinking, so what, we're gonna push us into trains and vehicles?
It's impossible to believe that this is challenged in that scenario that you just did, that separate but equal clause in the Constitution, First Amendment clauses in the Constitution will not challenge and ultimately take on Tennessee. But the fact is, we're going to have to go through the process to prove that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's a good point about the First Amendment, because at what point is drag in their definition? What is the line? Is it hair? Is it makeup? Is it outfit? Is it the heels? At what point is the walk to your car just no, this is just how I dress on a regular basis versus a show, that a minor could watch. Yeah. But it also makes me think of Florida. Right now, we're in a super majority, so they can waive the rules and pretty much do whatever they want. But what does that look like if they see this happen in Tennessee? For them to catch an idea and do it here, and what happens to Palace, on South Beach, or Twist, or all these places where, the street is a part of the show. Yeah. The public is a part of the show.
And what about interpretation? Because say I'm walking down the street in Tennessee, they may interpret me as a drag queen. Right. I get people that come up to me and say, oh, where do you perform? Because right away they assume that I'm, a drag performer at a club. Right. So, how would that impact just the trans community? Right. And this thing about, this attack on our community, the trans community and the drag community. The trans community, we're less than 1% of the world population.
Let's attack 3-year-old children. The trans community requires our defense. Yeah. It just simply does. This is going to be very unpopular, and I'm going to be criticized for it. But this story is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. I'm glad Jinx and others are doing this. But I want to say, and this comes from some history of an eye on RuPaul's Drag Race. Where have y'all been? Mm-hmm. This has been going on for 6 months.
This is not new.
This is not new. Yeah. This is the first story that we have told in an active fashion that RuPaul queens are going, wait, where were you 5 months ago when our house was attacked, when the drag show in California in the Silicon Valley happened? Where were we all? we are happy that we are seeing, wait, we're raising and escalating defense. That's my first observation. Are you coming to the party late? Because this party is not a very good party for you to join, but your voice is incredibly needed because of the people who follow and pay attention to you, especially in the entertainment industry. If you can get at a table at the Emmys, there are people at the Emmys that are way more powerful than the drag queens at RuPaul's Drag Race that will pay attention and then start to voice opposition to what we're watching, to drag queens, the trans community, etc. The second thing that I think is really important here is we must be very careful on your voices next. Make sure you think through your advocacy of how you're going to face this issue. When you turn your attention to Ron DeSantis, make sure it's not wholesale destruction of the entire state of Florida.
Yes.
I just had this conversation with the mayor of Fort Lauderdale just today. Broward County is different than Sarasota County. Miami-Dade County is different than Duval County and Jacksonville. So your attack needs to be with a scalpel, not with a grenade.
Yeah.
And so as you're doing that, make sure you're standing up for your drag queens and your trans community in the select communities that need your support because they do things differently than Jacksonville or Sarasota or in Tennessee. Memphis is different than Nashville.
Yeah.
And so make sure you're not throwing grenades and trying to blow the entire population up because it needs your scalpel of your tongue and voice and attitude, not the nuclear bomb.
Right. And I think to that point in transitioning into our next story is also make sure anybody coming from out of town is having conversations with people in Florida about what it is that we need and how you can support and what is going on. Because arguably, I'd say that immigrants were the first people that warned us about DeSantis. When his campaign ads were showing him building a wall with his kid, immigrants were the one that were like, this guy is terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible, it's dangerous, we need to do something.
Dangerous.
So let's pay attention to the folks that are here in the state and experiencing this.
So, did you enjoy the show? I know you did. So make sure to click subscribe so you won't miss any of the events, news, or interviews right here on the Faye What Show. Ring the bell at the bottom of the screen, right there, so you'll be alerted every time we're live. You can also click on the Happening Out Television Network logo so you can see all of the shows on the most diverse LGBTQ+ media network. Find out just what we're doing to bring the L and the G together right here on the Faye What Show. Get the week started with me.